We would also like to welcome the current leadership and all of the men and women of the 174th Attack Wing. Now we will have some brief statements from our distinguished guests, Major General Johnston, Commander of the New York Air National Guard.
Thank you. Thank you, Colonel Semmel, for inviting me over to this event here today at Syracuse. We're very happy to be representing the Adjutant General, Major General Patrick Murphy, for the state of New York to be over here. And as the commander of the New York Air National Guard, I'm awful proud of this unit here at the 174th. This is a real nice event here today. It's the taxiing of the MQ-9 Reaper that's located behind me. It's another step in the long continuation of the relationship of the MQ-9 Reaper and the 174th. And the folks here at the 174th do a terrific job in all their missions with this aircraft. They continue to do their wartime mission, flying the MQ-9 Reaper in Southwest Asia in support of our troops and our people over there. They do that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They do a great job of conducting training missions up at Fort Drum, but they also, with their flying training unit, they train active duty and Air Force Reserve and other Air National Guard pilots and sensor operators in qualifying and getting them checked out on the MQ-9. This base does a great job also with their flying training detachment. They train the maintainers who take care and keep this thing back here flying. They do a great job of that, and once again they're also training active duty, Air Force Reserve, and Air National Guard personnel. And in both cases, both the flying training unit and the flying training detachment, they also train officers and airmen from different foreign national air forces who also are operating this aircraft. And so that's great for Central New York to bring other folks in here and have an economic impact on Central New York. This unit here does a great job. We're awful proud of them. We had the Secretary of the Air Force come to a different Air National Guard unit in New York, down on Long Island, the 106th Rescue Wing. And our Adjutant General, Major General Murphy, and myself and General German got the opportunity to have a private meeting with her while she was visiting that unit. And among other things that we talked about is we told them about the tremendous performance of this 174th unit up here that flies this airplane, and the wonderful collaboration and the relationship that they have with the U.S. Army up at Fort Drum. And I think our pride in the unit up here came out. She was very excited to hear about this unit up here, and she said she's going to have to come back up to New York and see the unit up here at the 174th and go up to Fort Drum and see all the great things that are being done up here. I mean, we view this unit as certainly the best operator of MQ-9s and unmanned aircraft in the entire Air National Guard, but also in the total Air Force throughout the Air Force. I think they're leading the way. Now this demonstration that's going to happen today is just one small step in eventually working to fly these MQ-9s right out of Hancock Field right out here behind us. And they have such an outstanding reputation that the FAA came to them and said, hey, how can we get this program moving to build the proper procedures and regulations and techniques to operate right out of Hancock Field. And that's a testament to the performance of this unit. So a small step today in operating the Reaper right here in the ramp, and but a future great move for Central New York, as we can certainly be a lot more cost efficient in not having to move a lot of folks, whether they be air crew or maintainers or communications personnel or tacticians or command and control and so forth. We have to move essentially up to Fort Drum and back down here almost every day. So by operating them right out of here, it'll be a lot more cost efficient. We'll save a lot of money in logistics. We'll probably be able to increase our throughput for training more students and should be a great success for both the 174th and the Air National Guard, but the total Air Force. Finally, I'd just like to say that while today is a good event, I think what we all want to do is come back here in a few months maybe or so and see a culmination event and see this MQ-9 Reaper take off here out of Hancock Field and perform safely and proficiently and really enhance the capability of the unit and the performance of its mission. I'll leave it to Colonel Semmel to talk a little bit about the domestic opportunity with this airplane that can be a great resource for all New Yorkers. Thank you.
Well, again, my welcome to everyone also, and thanks for being here. General Johnston, thanks for being here this afternoon to represent the New York Air National Guard leadership as the commander. And also my welcome to Ms. Smith, and we appreciate Senator Gillibrand's support in what we do every day here at the 174th, and especially with our new mission with the MQ-9, the RPAs, and to Ms. McIntyre, the support that we get from the airport here and the Airport Authority is just outstanding. And I think we've got a great relationship that has continued over the years, and I know will continue for many more years. As General Johnston said, you know, we've come a long way with this new mission, the MQ-9. Over the past couple years, starting in the fall of 2009 with combat operations, flying around the clock, 24/7, 365 ever since then, to support the COCOM in Afghanistan and to ultimately keep the troops safe on the ground. But then taking that next step and starting local operations here in the United States in October of 2011. And ever since then, building our experience, building the background of how to best integrate this airplane behind us, the MQ-9, into the national airspace and the airspace over New York. So a lot of hard work. We've accumulated over 3,300 hours since the fall of 2011, flying the MQ-9 over the airspace up over New York State. And that has mainly been in support of MQ-9 training for the combat crews, the pilots and the sensor operators, in support of Air Combat Command syllabus, and directly supports those COCOMs out there across the world to bring them combat rated air crew to be able to, again, support the troops on the ground on a daily basis. Since that day back in 2011 when we first launched the sortie out of Fort Drum right up the road, we've been in very close coordination, working very closely with the FAA, and had a great relationship with the FAA. And all the hard work that you see from the leadership up here, from the 174th and from the New York Air National Guard, has really led to that great relationship with the FAA. And that led us to last January of this year, January 2014, where the chief of the UAS division, the Unmanned Aerial Systems Division down the FAA headquarters in D.C., actually came up to Syracuse and asked for a meeting with us. He invited the 174th and local and regional FAA representation and set a goal to set a discussion, and the goal was to fly MQ-9s from Hancock Field and be the first to do this with RPAs, to fly out of an airfield such as Hancock, which is known as Class C airspace, where you have regularly scheduled both commercial, general aviation, and military flights on a daily basis. Since then, we've worked real hard since January, and we have, as the leadership has worked hard on fulfilling all the requirements that are needed to get to that ultimate goal, to fly out of Hancock Field. We've worked very closely with the FAA to come up with a certificate of authorization excuse me, that'll define how we fly the airplane. We've been able to acquire the required equipment that will be necessary to put on the airfield here, the antennas, etc. We've gone out and done a full spectrum analysis of the airfield to ensure that we have the right frequencies, there's no frequency interference, and to ensure that we look in the environmentals around the airfield and to do an environmental assessment. We expect all that to be complete, as General Johnston mentioned, hopefully within the next couple months, 5 to 6 months. My goal and my hope is to, as we talked about, we'll take small steps. We'll walk before we run. This is just one of the first milestones and small steps as we taxi the airplane today. But as we get into the future months, we will taxi the airplane further out onto the civilian side of the airfield, work more with the commercial side of the airfield, and then, excuse me, in the later months, start to fly the airplane. We'll start it by first just flying it in the local pattern, and then ultimately we'll learn how to safely get it to and from the airspace from this airfield. Our ability to conduct operations out of Hancock Field, as General Johnston kind of mentioned, will lead to multiple benefits for us. First of all, it'll lead to our capacity, our ability to increase the capacity for student throughput of the schoolhouse here on the order of about 40 to 50% a year. And it'll also, like was mentioned, will save the taxpayer up to on the order of about $1 million a year by being able to keep the airplane here on the airfield. You know, I'd like to stress, just like we have in the past and currently, we will continue in the future to adhere to all the strict rule sets and restrictions that we have with the RPA as we fly it over the state of New York and the United States. Some of those rule sets, firstly being, you know, we'll continue to train exclusively in special use airspace, dedicated and specifically by the FAA for our use, for military use training. Secondly, and most importantly, the rule set that we will never use the airplane for targeted surveillance of any New York or U.S. citizen on the ground, and always be in compliance with the U.S. laws and DOD regulations that guide us on what we can actually do with the airplane and the sensors on the airplane. And lastly, one of the just as important rule sets is we'll never fly live ordnance on the airplane out of Hancock Field. We'll always reserve that mission center the ability to fly live ordnance and continue to do that out of Wheeler Sack Army Airfield up the road at Fort Drum. As General Johnston said, the great milestone today, small step. We're just starting this operation out of Hancock Field. We're going to do it very methodically, right in lockstep with the FAA, to figure out how to safely do it and integrate it into the airspace around Hancock Field and into the national airspace. But again, a very exciting day for us, so thanks for being here. We appreciate it. I think at this point what we're going to do is we're going to take a real quick break, and we'll allow you to move up closer to the airplane as we start some taxi operations. And then we'll come back here and we'll take some questions. So thanks for being here today.